Okay, Improvisation Center is back again with, another truck. This one is 82, 84, hell, I don't remember what year it was. Some early 80s F150 truck. We picked this up from another friend of a friend and hauled it back about, I would say, 80, 90 miles with the big truck over there on the trailer and brought it back here. And dragged it back in here with the tractor because, well, it doesn't currently run. But the first question may be, why the hell would you get another late-ish model old truck? Well, because of that right there. It has a 351 Windsor high output V8 and a C6 transmission. And that's a nice combination. Heavy duty, able to pull, able to withstand some punishment. What are you going to do with this engine and transmission, you ask? Well, first thought might have been put it in DFMT. But because that's already got a 5-speed and we're already working on that engine, our other option is going to be to put it into the Rustang, the 69 Mustang, that we've more or less been just sitting on. It hasn't been driven in a while. It currently has a 6-cylinder in it. And originally, because it's a Mach 1 car, it used to have a 351 Windsor with an FMX transmission, which is essentially the earlier version of a C6. So this powertrain right here would fit perfectly in that car as far as bringing it to a state of originality that it deserves. So that is going to be our game plan. But right now, what I really want to do is get this engine running so I can confirm that I don't have to do anything to this thing prior to putting it in the car, because when I put it in the car, I would much rather it start up and instantly drive. So we're going to have to get it running in this truck first. And as you can see, it's a Duraspark ignition system. It's got a Holley carburetor that looks like it's been cooked because, well, it has been cooked. One of the float bowls leaked when the guy was running it, trying to bleed the brakes, and it caught on fire. But it only burnt enough before he put it out. It only burnt the carburetor. It actually did not burn the wires or the cap or anything essential. So just the carburetor got cooked a little bit. That's fine. Not really fond of Holleys anyway. It's coming off, and we're going to borrow an Edelbrock to put on there in order to see if we can run the thing. Because once the carburetor goes on there, it's just a matter of verifying if there's fuel in the thing and if the fuel pump works, and putting a battery in there. It's got oil in there already. It's essentially going to be the DOB to some degree as far as resurrecting. So some more or less straightforward, simple tune-up-ish type shit. But want to clean up the engine bay, get all this trash out of here too, all the little fragments of garbage and stuff, and get this carburetor off so I can clean up around the engine and get all these crazy vacuum lines and shit off of here, because this is one of those vehicles where it was kind of in a transition period from carburetor to fuel injection. They had all that emission trash on here, so there's a million vacuum lines routed all over the place that technically we don't really need. So I have to clean some stuff up. So let's get to it. Yeah, got a lot of crispy crap in there, dirt and everything. Go ahead and vacuum this out. Pull the rest of this shit out of here, hoses included. Stand by. Okay, got our spacer off, and that's what we're working with right there. Typical little 4-barrel intake with the small holes, which means I'm going to need to add a spacer in order to use our Edelbrock carburetor. But luckily, I have plenty of spacers. So, just have to do a little more cleanup, fish out some gaskets and the spacer, and then we can go ahead and get our carburetor mounted down. And of course I'm going to have to address the fuel line right here because I had to twist and break the thing in order to get it off the old carburetor. So I'm going to have to cut off that twisted metal right there and just have a open tube so I can hook up a rubber hose to it to go to the carburetor. But we're well on our way. So the work continues. On a side note, if you didn't notice, there's not as many rubber hoses strung all through here as before. I actually ripped out a lot of that crap. Here's some of the fittings where a lot of those hoses went. A lot of this hooked up to the charcoal canisters for the evaporative fuel system, which we're not going to be worrying about. All that shit is right here. Pulled everything out. I will have to probably cap some spots on the intake where these little vacuum manifold ports are at. That's no big deal. The main thing is we don't have all these hoses and all this other trash strung all over. We're just going to stick with the main hoses for the distributor and the transmission and our PCV valve and our brake booster. Those can be hooked up without all this other trash everywhere. So, thought I'd make note of that real quick. So, we're going to go ahead and get our carb on. Okay, we got things situated here. We obviously got our spacer out of there, cleaned up the surface, mounted another gasket on there. Now, something I want to point out, there was a little thing right here. I don't know what it was, but it had a vacuum diaphragm on it. That little thing is right here. Had to cut this off along with the little stem that it was attached to right here because, well, it would interfere with the carburetor throttle. So probably some emissions related crap, but again, not needed. It got chopped off so we could be able to put our carburetor down. Now conveniently, one of the Edelbrocks I have has a spacer already glued to it. This, if I'm not mistaken, was one I used to use on the old Dodge, because its intake was a spread bore setup and I needed to go to a square bore, so that was where this spacer came into play, where it goes from spread to square bore. Now, even though this is a square bore, the bolt pattern on there goes both ways on this spacer as well as the carburetor, so this setup right here will go right on to that intake with that bolt pattern for the studs. So I'm going to go ahead, probably slap a little more gasket maker on there and glue this little sucker down and get this thing hooked up. Still got to do my fuel line right here because, well, it's chopped up. And conveniently, we have a regular nipple right here for a rubber hose. So that'll be a quick assembly just the same. And of course, we got our air line for the distributor, which, same thing, we got spots on the carb for that. So go ahead and get this shit hooked up. Let's do it. just to verify something, took a piece of fuel hose, hooked it up to our fuel line right here where I trimmed off that twisted out metal tubing and hooked it up to our little portable fuel system pump. So I just want to see if there's any gas still in the tank of this truck, because that'll let me know whether I need to put gas in the thing. So go ahead, hook our thing up, got our pump going. Appears like we have some petrol in here. I don't know how much now, mind you, because I am drawing on the other side of the fuel pump, so there might be some resistance there. But for all intents and purposes, I will be able to say that there is some gas in the tank. And if for any other reason fuel is free flowing, unlike the DOB that had the problem with the sending unit and all being clogged up and not allowing any gas to pass through. So go ahead and trim this fuel hose down some, or maybe not, and go ahead and hook it up to the carburetor. We got our battery already in here. I know there's already oil in here. I have to cap off a few vacuum lines, and we should be ready to try to crank this thing. Stand by. Okay, got a little cap right there on that vacuum line. We got another vacuum line. Let's see if we can get a good little focus about right in here. Thing's got like 4 different nipples on here for the plugs that I removed, so I ended up just essentially putting jumpers of hoses to cap all the ends off. So yeah, that's done. Like I said, we got our battery in, fuel lines all hooked up right there, as you can see. Worm clamps are on. We're essentially ready to go. Even got some juice so we could try to help this thing out along a little bit. So let's see what happens. Okay, I had to prop the choke closed. Gonna give this shit a try once again. See what happens. Of course, the gas is old and it smells like shit, but it's volatile enough to make this engine run. I attempted to put it in gear and see if it'll move, but more than likely the brakes are frozen, so it wasn't exactly moving. Hell, even when we moved the truck over here, it was dragging the wheels, so that'll be a whole nother thing that I had to look at, is popping the rear wheels loose and looking at the brakes to see what's up with that. But for all intents and purposes, our engine runs. Guess it didn't like that all too well. Okay. Damn choke popped open. Bitch. Be stubborn. You fucker. Stubborn fucker. Okay, I guess I have to help her out. Hell, I'm probably out of gas. Well, I don't know. We might be out of gas. Ain't like the gauge was reading shit. I'm not sure if the gauge is working or not, but that's neither here or there. She don't want to stay running, but then again, I could be wrong. Let me do one more time. Just being stubborn as fuck. I am sucking up old ass fuel after all. But for all intents and purposes, this engine actually sounds pretty good. No clacking, no rod knocking, no shit. Hell, it ain't even smoking neither. I think we got us a winner. Looks like it came off easier doing it that way than trying to beat it off coming straight out. Ain't that a bitch? But we got it all freed up. Now, have to bleed these brakes. And hell, for all intents and purposes, I could probably still use that drum. Only thing that broke off was this little rim right here. This is not exactly a disqualifier for a brake drum to function, because it's going to be locked down out here anyway. So it might not be a total loss. So yeah, I could put this shit back together. Already got the other side off. Easier than this, of course. But it's off. And I just put it back together. And we can bleed the brakes. Yeah, like I say, drum is actually still intact other than this lip. Do a quick inspection here. Make sure everything else is kosher, which it is. I did pump the pedal once to get some oil back here, so we're pretty much ready to bleed this shit. Be stuck. I think we're good. Put this fucking tire back on. There we go. Tire's full of air, secured. I can go ahead and lower this joker down. Okay, one of the things I did when it comes to bleeding brakes is a quick one-man setup. Well, it's not really quick because it takes a few moments, but fill up the reservoir, open the bleeder valves. Well, I started with the back first. Open the bleeder valves and walk away. And over time, gravity will draw the brake oil from the reservoir down through the brake lines, obviously displacing any air, until it makes it to the wheel cylinders and starts running out of the wheel cylinders. By that time, put a little more oil in the reservoir so it can continue the process. Typically by that time, enough air will have been displaced or otherwise moved from any recesses that you can consider your brake system bled. Did the same thing with the front as well. Let it sit, let the brake oil run down to the calipers, and well, oil came out, and I tightened everything up, and it appears like there's pressure. Granted, this is a power brake truck and the thing's not running, but it's got a relatively firm pedal. I will probably have a spongy pedal when I start it up, because this way of bleeding brakes is not exactly the optimum way of doing it, but it's a quick way of doing it if you're just one guy and don't have any help available right on the spot, short of buying the apparatus to try to do all that by yourself or doing any of the other little tricks. Didn't really have time to gather up the materials to try to do a one-man brake bleeding job. I just want to be able to get this thing where it'll stop for the most part, because again, this is a temporary setup. Anyway, last thing we really need to do is choke cable. On this carburetor, we do have a bracket right here for holding the choke cable, as well as the spot to hook up the end of the cable. Just have to find a spot in the firewall where I could run the cable through, and of course set it up under the dash just like I've done on other cars, and have that little thing set up so we can go ahead and try to run this thing. I also located the fuel selector switch. It was out in the open in a spot that kind of makes you want to kick yourself in the ass when you find out where it's at. It's on the HVAC control panel, which is kind of goofy, but it is there. Right there. Front, see, it says fuel, front, rear, on the damn panel right there. What the fuck? So, found that out. It says it's on the rear tank, so for all intents and purposes, we're gonna put fuel in the rear tank from this point on, because I really don't know if the solenoid works, the selector valve works, or any of that. We're not trying to dig that deep into this thing. That other tire, I had a spare that was in the back of the truck that I also went ahead and put on, and it's holding air, and we're good on that, so we don't have to worry about the flat tire. And we'll see how things hold out with these rusty ass rims. But in the meantime, choke cable. So stand by. Okay, went ahead, let me refocus this in, hold on, there we go. Alright, went ahead and secured the end of the choke cable to an existing screw point. Everything fits in there pretty good. It's out of the way enough that it's still reachable, but just not blatantly obvious. So with that, we got the other end tightened down and the cable routed in a way where It's not interfering with anything on the engine, so we should be ready to rock and roll. So, let's try this shit again, folks. I still got a little ways to go on the tuning side of this. I was able to get it to stay running while in gear by obviously having it idling high as hell. Needed gas as well too because, well, it was out of gas. But it's running. We're definitely not tuned to save our lives, but we will work on that. But one thing that I have noticed is it will go into gear rather firmly, so pretty confident the transmission's going to be all right. So we're going to keep toying around with some fine tuning and shit. It'll probably involve putting some hardware on there to look at the timing and shit, vacuum and all, and see if there's something that can be tweaked, or if we got a vacuum leak somewhere that we missed. Work continues. Okay, on the harmonic balancer, because the marks are very small, well, not very small, the cuts are so shallow that even after scraping the dirt off, it was still kind of hard to see them with the engine running and the strobe light from the timing light flashing on it. So I took the liberty of marking everything with a permanent marker so it'll be more visible in the eye, in the little eye loop bracket on the front of the timing cover. So at least now we can more accurately get the timing set. You can see I got 0, 10, 20, 30 before top dead center marked. At that other mark to the left of the 0 is actually ATC, after top center. So those are the marks that I have. So move on to the top real quick. As for our vacuum gauge, it has to be plugged up to a engine vacuum or manifold vacuum, which in our case on our carburetor is the port feeding the vacuum advance on the distributor, so we can get a accurate assessment. As you can see on the gauge, there's a little green zone that says normal motor, which for all intents and purposes, as long as it's at idle and in that zone, we can say everything is kosher. But we still have to do a couple things, like when I get the engine running, get our timing checked and verified, try to turn the idle down as far as we could go before the thing starts sputtering out. Well, not quite to the sputter, but just enough to keep it idling, and then we could start playing with our air fuel screws right here, so we could go ahead and actually try to get a good accurate tune on the carburetor. So right now, I'll go ahead and get this thing started back up, get it warmed up, so we can go ahead and perform that duty. Oh, and one more thing. As far as our timing light right here, if anybody's never used a timing light, obviously they come with their own power clamps to hook it up to the battery, and it comes with an inductive head right here that you clamp to the #1 cylinder spark plug wire. So that's all it is to it. And then once you do all that, let's see if I could zoom in down there. Right there, that little eye loop thingy that's dead center. That's a better look. That little eye loop thingy right there is where we will be looking for our marks with the strobe light on the timing light gun to see where our timing is at. And then of course you tweak the distributor back and forth to either advance or retard the timing. So that's really it. So let me get this engine started, warmed up, and get things tuned. As you can see, our timing is apparently right at top dead center. I need to tweak this thing a little bit. I need to advance this thing a little bit. So stand by. Almost like that thing is bottomed out. Yeah, we're like literally on top dead center. 1-2 degrees at best. That still sucks. Normally I'm at 10 degrees top dead center. But one thing we got to remember though, hold on. Get that vacuum gauge off. Plug that up. Let's check it again. Got a little more advance in there.
Not right where I want it. We're probably at about 5 degrees top dead center right now. It's literally between the 0 and the 10. Can't see the 0 or the 10 in the eye loop, which means we're around 5 degrees. Still not where I wanted to be, but about as far as I'm going to be able to go with this distributor in its current state. Yeah, it's about as much as we're going to go on that. So, with that, other than reseating the distributor, I'll have to go ahead and move the wires, but we're not going to do that. We're going to kind of stick with that 5 degrees right now, because before it was actually a little more retarded than that. So we're at 5 degrees. We're well below top dead center than we were. Got a little tapping going on, so probably going to have to put some oil treatment shit up in here. Hopefully we're not getting any rod knock conditions or anything, but we're just going to keep playing with this. Go ahead and put our vacuum gauge back on, which, as you can see, it's in the happy zone. See if I can tweak the air fuel needles. See if we can get some action there. I really don't like that damn sound. Bottom our screw out. One, or half, that's one turn. Got 1.5. 2, 2.5, I'm backing up to 2, about 1 3/4. Let's do this side. Okay, half, 1, half, 2. Back up to 1.5. Right there's 1 3/4. Didn't really get too much of a change, but opening the needles up too much ain't necessarily good either. Normally having it at 1.5 turns is normal. Rare occasions you might have it at 2 full turns. But we've seen when we turn the right needle all the way down closed, it reacted. So there might be some little conditions with this carburetor, passage clogged up or whatever. But all in all, we're running with a wide open choke, I might add. Go ahead and see how this thing acts when I put it in gear. Let me get the gauge back off. Get our distributor hooked up. Move some of this other loose shit out of the way. See how this thing acts. Let's see what happens. Might need to bump up the idle a little bit, because it kind of don't like it all too well when it's in gear. Yeah, we need to bump that idle up a little bit. Give it a little nudge. Not much. I hate having super high idle. Turn down just a smidge. See how this thing acts again. Exhaust smells like shit. Be more concerned about why the hell front brakes seem to be locked up more so than anything. Well, they're not locked up. I'm just tripping. Probably binding up on something on the ground, who knows? It's probably got a... Yeah, there we go, we lost it. Come on, bitch. Come on. Yeah, we got to do a little more investigating to see what's up with how this thing is running when it's under load. So, stand by. Okay, I went ahead and changed the oil on this thing because, as you can hear, it almost sounds like there might be a rod knock. Well, maybe one, I don't know, but there is something going on in there. Anyway, I changed the oil in there. I put some 20 weight in there along with some oil treatment stuff on some vain hope that maybe it'll quiet things down, but as you can tell, it has not. So, in the end, I'm probably going to end up just pulling this engine and rebuilding this thing because I don't want to put a questionable engine into another car and then have to do that shit all over again. I don't want to double work. That's why I want to get all this ironed out now before I actually go ahead and do the transplant job. So anyway, I'm just going to do a quick test drive just to verify that our transmission is doing what it's supposed to do. So we're going to go ahead and probably do a hop up and down the driveway just to verify this thing is shifting. And go ahead and park this thing back where it's currently at, which is not in the back where I had it, well, not in the back, which is over there where our F250 is currently at. It's right here in our midway area where everything else is parked at. So, yeah, go ahead, disconnect the battery cables from the charger, and let's see what this thing does. Stand by. tell if it was actually shifting. And it felt like it was shifting. Went from first to second, and second to third, and it shifted. So I think our transmission should be A-OK. Engine, on the other hand, well, not so A-OK. Even though I don't hear the rod knocking no more, for all intents, but I will see in a minute when I park this thing. That's gonna put wonders on the U-joints. They're probably shot. Come on, bitch. Oh, shit. Too close. Don't hit the Elko. Good. Oh no, it's still rod knocking. The engine sounds shitty. It's gonna need to be rebuilt. I'm shutting it off so I don't kill it anymore. And it's dieseling. Awesome. Well, after everything that we've done on here, all the way up to putting some heavyweight oil and oil treatment in here, you can hear that we probably have rod knocks. Nothing too serious, but serious enough that I'm not going to just dump this engine into a car with the hopes of riding it for any long amount of time without it puking its guts out with metal. So yeah, I'm probably going to be yanking this engine out, but not to transplant it right away, but to more than likely either rebuild it or on the lease end replacing rod bearings. At least once it's out of the truck, I can put it on a stand, flip it upside down, and do a little inspection of the bottom end just to see, because really, it's not burning any oil, and compression seems to be pretty good as far as its ability to start up quick and have some juice to it. So, hell, on the lease end, I might just replace the damn rod bearings and call it a day. But that's how it goes in this game. You pretty much got to roll the dice. Roll the dice that you might get a good engine. Roll the dice that you might not need to do a whole lot of work to a used engine. And even after you do the work, roll the dice again and hope that nothing else surfaces. Of course, that's also the case when you ain't exactly got a whole lot of resources with which to allow you to just do excess work right at the beginning of things. Sure, you got money, yeah. Send the engine out to a machine shop and have it rebuild it before you even try to mess with it. But that's not how it goes in the backyard auto shop. It's a game of rolling the dice. And that's what we're going to have to keep doing here, rolling the dice. But, as you've seen, the truck does drive, so our transmission's fine. And as far as the truck is concerned, everything is pretty straight. So, regardless of what I do with this engine, this truck is still capable of being a fairly decent work truck for anybody that might want it after I yank the powertrain out of it. So, while this thing is running and rattling, I'm going to go ahead and conclude this video. So, till the next time, if you hadn't already, hit that like button, the subscribe, notifications, all that good stuff. Be able to get some more updates on us and all these piles that we're working on right now. So, till the next time, I will catch you later. This truck will catch you later. All this stuff will catch you later. I'm out.